My friends, today let's talk about the inadequacy paradox. It's one thing that I wish I knew when I was in my late teens to early 20s because I struggled a lot, and if I knew this back then, it would have given me at least some more perspective and clarity because this inadequacy paradox made my life both worse and better, harder and easier. And I want to tell you why, because I think for many of you, you're probably in an earlier stage of this paradox than I am currently, and it may feel hard, it may feel discouraging at times, but I want to tell you that there's actually more to it than you might initially expect. And don't worry, I will be bringing this back to cars, but we're going to start with academics. So, back when I was in high school, there were always those kids, you guys can probably relate, those like genius kids, the brilliant kids, they tend to be a little bit nerdier, and at my school, we would joke that these two brilliant kids were gonna cure cancer. They were just so smart, so gifted, and it seemed like they never had to study, and yet they always got the top marks. But what you don't realize when you're actually in grade school is that people like to pretend that they're not working hard, and that they're just magically achieving these great results, but in reality, they actually are working harder than you think. I didn't know that at the time. And long story short, I always knew that I was a notch or two below these really brilliant kids, that I did not have the talent, the intellect, the horsepower on a mental level that these guys did. But then something funny happened, which is that there was a math competition, and it was an optional thing, and some of my friends were doing it, so I said, hey, I'll come and join you guys. And long story short, out of those two kids who would supposedly cure cancer, one of them couldn't get past the first round, one of them did, and there was one other brilliant kid who also passed. So there were three of us. It was me, one of the kids who could cure cancer, and one other smart kid that got past the first round. And I was like, wait a second, that wasn't supposed to happen. This is not what I was expecting. And then when you come to graduation, and me and my friends were talking about GPAs, you know, this person's going to Brown, and so is the person to Harvard, et cetera, et cetera. And I was like, wait a second, I didn't realize that you weren't a straight A student, that you had a couple B's here and there. It's not always the top students, it's also the support they have, right? Are they using coaching and consulting to getting in to these top schools? Do they have processes around their extracurriculars to really build that narrative? All these other things that I had no idea about at the time. I didn't even apply to a lot of these schools because I wasn't even shooting that high, if you will. I felt inadequate. I felt like I wasn't as good as others. In my first year of college, I unfortunately got diagnosed with ulcerative colitis, and it was a very challenging time, and it took my feeling of inadequacy and made me feel even more inadequate because now I felt like there was something broken that I needed to compensate for. So I worked even harder. Granted, in high school I didn't work as hard as I could have. In college I definitely did. And here's the funny thing. I ended up doing quite well in my classes. I started studying the curve. I actually tied that one brilliant kid who did the math exam and who went to Harvard. He and I got the same MCAT score. I was like, I guess this entire time, maybe I was selling myself short. Maybe I had more potential than I would have thought. Now, in the moment, as a student in high school and in early college, I just felt like I was inadequate, like I was lesser than. But with that fuel, it turned into motivation and into action, and it made me a better student. And then as I became a better student, I could then reap the rewards that I had sown. So I got into top med schools, multiple top 5 med schools, top 20 med schools, full scholarship, saved literally $250K in student loans, not because anyone paid for that. I paid for my own college, I paid for my own med school, but I had earned a merit-based scholarship, meaning that, hey, Kevin, your GPA, MCAT, overall stats are so competitive, you're better than the rest of the students in our class. We want you to come to our school. Here's some financial incentive to help make that decision easier for you. So I went from feeling super low to then, of course, at that moment, getting into med school, merit-based scholarship, saving hundreds of thousands of dollars, feeling very up, right? And you guys have been watching the channel long enough. You know that I am no genius. I'm kind of an idiot. So if I can do these things, you can do them as well. This isn't about having some innate talent. This is about a mindset and an approach that actually serves you long term. So that's number one, the academics, right? That then brings me to point number 2, my current business. I don't do car YouTube as a full-time job. I actually help people become doctors. And because I had done so well in college and in medical school, and I'd done well in my exams, and I have a lot of research. In fact, I have so much research that one of the doctors writing my letter of recommendation thought that it was fake. He was like, dude, there's no way someone can write this much research in so little time, because I have 66 research items by the time I started residency, 29 publications, my H index is 16. I'm still, despite not having done research in more than a decade, I still am one of the top 5% most cited doctors on Doximity, which is like LinkedIn for doctors. So this stuff is like bananas. In the moment, you feel inadequate. In the moment, you compare yourself to others and think you are lesser than. But in hindsight, looking back, you say, wow, okay, I guess I actually learned a few skills, right? And now I teach people the skills of how to approach research, because research is becoming more and more important to get into top medical schools and top residencies. So those skills allowed me to now create my current business. And the same thing here. When I was starting the business, I looked around and I found some issues. One of the biggest issues is that when you go to consulting companies to get into med school, to get into residency, even to get into a top college, there's a high degree of variation with regards to the quality of those services. And if you went to the Apple store and you had some iPhones that were good and some iPhones that were bad, you wouldn't stand for that. That's just nonsense, right? But yet we do that for some service-based businesses because we just assume that it has to be that way. So I did actually bring on some friends and colleagues who were working at other companies. I offered them some incentives to come work for me instead in the early days, and we brainstormed and worked together on building these systems that, sure, they do add a little bit of complexity on our back end, but they actually result in a much better experience for the customer so that you have higher consistency. And even still, I feel like there were so many things that glass half full mindset I wanted to fix and improve across the years. I'm like, okay, we now have this, but now it opens up this other area for improvement, and we want to kind of tweak this a little bit, and it should actually, just small, minor 2, 5, 10% improvements here and there. And again, it's easy to feel inadequate. It's easy to feel like you're not doing what you want, you're not good enough yet. And then, in the last year, I've been doing a lot more calls with prior students and current insiders, which are our doctors that work for us. And two things came up. Number one, a lot of students would say that they had worked with other companies and come worked with us, and they said, you guys are just so much better. I wish I started working with you guys sooner, but your guys' marketing, I just didn't know you guys were doing X, Y, and Z, because I know you have a YouTube channel, but your other marketing, your website, when I did my Google search, you guys didn't come up in the same way that this competitor did. But I'm glad that I'm working with you now, and it's so much better. I said, wow, okay, we're on the right path. Maybe we're not as, in this glass half full analogy, maybe the glass is maybe 2/3 or 3/4 or 4/5 full, right? And then more recently, I spoke with Dr. Sunny Shah, and he is one of these doctors that's been working with us for 5 years. And he told me, he said, Kevin, I actually worked at however many other companies doing the same thing. I think it was like maybe 6 other companies doing the same thing, and I love what you guys are doing. And like, this is all unprompted too. I was just like, hey man, how are things going? We were going to talk about one of the students that he was working with, but he brought up this whole like, dude, I love what you guys are doing. I'm so glad we're finally chatting. Let me tell you my experience. And he was telling me how at other companies they don't have the guidance, and we give this guidance, and other companies they don't do X, Y, and Z properly, and that how we have innovated in these ways that we should not take for granted. We should be proud of those things. And I said, okay, wow, I guess, again, we're not as glass half empty as I thought. We should be looking more at glass half full. But here's the thing. By feeling that you have so much to improve, by not getting complacent, that's what actually pushes you forward to get better, right? To innovate, to push the boundaries, and to do things that you otherwise probably wouldn't have. And that's the paradox, because in the moment you can feel unhappy and inadequate and less than, but looking back, you're actually very grateful for that fuel, for that fire under your butt. And now I want to bring this over to cars, because that's why you guys are here, right? In the same way with cars, most guys think that they can do two things. They can fuck and they can drive. And statistically, that's just impossible for everyone to be at the top of the bell curve, right? Some people are going to be better or worse at these things than others. And the reason why guys believe these things is, of course, ego. By telling themselves that they are already great at this thing, it makes them feel more like valuable men. And to more honestly and inquisitively question those assumptions and say, you know what, maybe I'm not as good of a driver, maybe I'm not as good as a lover as I think, that very much challenges your ego. It makes you feel inadequate. right? So it is natural for us to want to overemphasize and over-index on the innate skill that we already have. Which, let's be real, none of us are Max Verstappen. I don't know if you guys saw this recent video of Max Verstappen driving a Nissan GT car at Fuji Speedway, and there's like a very fast Japanese GT driver who I think hits like a 144 after a few laps. Max Verstappen first lap almost ties the guy's time. Second lap is 2 seconds faster than one of these quickest. Like, that's insane. 2 seconds around a track like that's massive. That's huge, right? So we have to have that humility. And I want to tell you my story too, because this is what has helped me, and I'm going to tell you why it's actually made me enjoy driving more. So I did my first ever track day in 2020. I did not do my second track day until a year later in 2021. And I did a couple track days in 2021, and then a few more in 2022. And it actually wasn't even until last year, 2025, that I actually did a lot of track days. Last year, I think I did like almost, I want to say 8, 9 track days. Like I was on the track a lot between May and December. And my buddy Alex O, who you guys may have seen on the channel, I've ridden passenger with him. He's quite a quick driver. He's done more than 200 track days. 200! And he thought, at the time last year, I had done only 25 track days. He's like, Kevin, I thought you had done 100 track days. And I said, that is interesting. What makes you say that? I actually have done only 25. And I think what it comes down to is when you are approaching things as I suck and I want to get better, then it allows you to improve at a rate that you simply would not if you had a different assumption, which is that you already are a great driver and you don't have much to learn. So now I have about 35 track days under my belt, and I will say that if I had chosen a different car, and I do talk in other videos about how I believe having a slower car that you drive harder will make you a quicker driver faster, right? You will progress and learn at a quicker rate. I think that's part of it, but I think the other part is the mindset to say, I have so much to learn. At every track day, I'm asking people who are more experienced than me, Mario Lento, these other professional race car drivers who are so much quicker than any of us, right, who don't do this professionally. I ask them, hey, can you either ride passenger or hey, review my footage and tell me what can I do better? And you guys may have seen in some of these prior track videos with my Miata that I'll shave off 2 seconds after talking to Mario. Because at Laguna Seca, he just pointed out one way that I wasn't getting on throttle soon enough and needed to point the car a little bit earlier, and boom, instantly 2.5 seconds quicker the next session I went out. That's what happens when you remain humble, right? And I will say for myself, you can find my first ever track video day 1 at Laguna Seca at my Scion FRS versus today. You cannot even recognize me as the same driver. It is completely different. And in another 30, 40, 50 track days, I'll say the same thing. I'll say, wow, me today completely sucks. And I'm so much better in the future than I am today. That's good. That's what it should be. It should be that I know everything right now. And I don't think that that is universal. I think there are many drivers that you will see on their 30th, 40th, 50th track day, and you very much can recognize them as the same driver from when they were on track day number 5, right? And that's not good. That's them holding themselves back. And you can argue, well, maybe they just want to go to the track and just have a good time. Yes, go to the track and have a good time. And I think what we find intrinsically rewarding and enjoyable is when we see ourselves improving. When you go to the gym and see results in terms of your strength or muscle mass, you are motivated and you want to keep going. That is fun. It is more fun to go to the gym and see your bench go up versus go to the gym and to see your bench stagnate. The same thing applies to driving. If you go to the track and you see yourself becoming a better driver, you will enjoy driving that much more. And people get so obsessed over which car is quicker or slower and what should I put my money on? Dude, who cares, man? Try them all, sample everything, because at the end of the day, the only thing that actually matters, the thing that you take from car to car, is the driver mod. Are you getting better as a driver? That's the only thing that matters. That car you currently own that you think is going to be your forever car, it's BS. There is no forever car. You will eventually sell it. What you should focus on is honing your skill, honing your craft, because no matter what car you are in, whether you're driving a Lotus Emira, a Mazda Miata, a Porsche GT3, a Honda Civic, whatever it is, sure, you got to learn different engine layouts and drivetrain formats and how that can change driving dynamics. But across those vehicles, there's a common thread, and that is your driver skill, your driver mod, and that's why it is the single most important thing you should be focusing on as a driver when you go to these track days. That is going to be more fun for you, I guarantee it. All right, so how does this actually apply to you and in your life? First of all, admit that you're not as good as you think you are or that you want to be. Accept that there are levels to this and learn from faster drivers. Review the data, have telemetry, have your recordings, take the coaching, and drive lower powered cars that aren't so ego driven, that are more tools for you to build your skill set. Focus on the fundamentals and build your skill intentionally, because the best drivers, they're not the ones who feel invincible. They're the ones who can feel the limit, understand the car, respect it, and they keep refining and dancing with that limit over time. And here's the core message I want you to take home. Inadequacy is useful only if it becomes humility. Humility is only useful when it becomes action, and action is only useful if it becomes deliberate practice. And that is the paradox, because that feeling that makes you unhappy today can actually be the reason that you are proud of yourself tomorrow. My friends, much love, and I'll see you all in the next one.